Hey, this is Tino Mantella. I'm Chief Strategy Officer for Relevantz, and welcome to our first episode of Being Relevant. And today, our special guest is Ganesh, who is Director of Engineering from Relevantz. Welcome, Ganesh.
Thanks, Tino. I'm very excited to be part of the first episode of Being Relevant.
I know. It's
Good start here.
there's only one first, so you get the shot at it, and that's because you're one of our great solution engineers. And been how many years have you been with us?
It's 16 years, but now, yeah, 16
Yes,
and the overall experience being more than 20.
yeah, that's amazing. Ganesh is just really giving us a brief overview of yourself, your background, a little bit.
Mhm. So I'm the director of engineering at Relevantz. Like I said, been in the industry for 20 years, working on many enterprise applications. So and at Relevantz, we get to work across domains. And nowadays, I spend most of my time thinking for the customer around how we can leverage emerging technologies and then drive benefits for our customers. So how we can help them meet their business objectives, building on top of emerging technologies like Gen AI.
Yeah, and I know we started the company more on the product side, and that was probably a good way to start it because a lot of our engineers, like you, have a product mindset. So was that an easy shift to make, or?
That is so true. And we pride ourselves with the idea of every engineer carrying this DNA of product engineering mindset. And that really sets us apart. And that goes back to the foundations of being a product company, like you said.
Yeah. So, we talked about you mentioned the word AI. So if AI is probably the one of the most used words now, but I think most people understand this, but maybe just quickly tell me the difference between, people talked about AI and then Gen AI and then agentic, and there's a movement in that direction.
This AI is not new. No, like you said, it's been around for a long time. And generative AI is just a subset of AI, right? And this is the picture that we usually draw to answer such questions. The AI is the largest subset, and then we have machine learning inside that, we have deep learning inside machine learning, and generative AI is something that is born out of deep learning like algorithms, right? So it is a subset of AI, but nowadays AI generally means generative AI, but so be it, right? So that's the times that we live in.
Right, right. And now a lot of people are talking about agentic or agent. Is that like the next step?
Yeah, no, yeah. So generative AI is just that. It can generate, summarize text. But how do you translate what is generated into action? And that is where agentic AI comes into play, right? And that's what makes it even more fun. It just doesn't stop at answering your questions. It can do things for you now, right? So that's where agentic AI is coming, and that's really the game changer, right? So with agentic AI, we are going to see a lot more enterprise adoption of this generative AI technology.
So, like from your perspective, what are some of the most compelling use cases or solutions that enterprises can build using these capabilities?
It depends on how much you understand where you can apply such a powerful technology, right? So, to going back to your question, the short answer is, and in the context of large language models, in the context of generative AI, for the discussion today, the short answer is any business case that demands generation of content is a candidate, right? A
Yeah.
longer version of that will be, uh, it will start by understanding what are the core capabilities of these large language models. If you really think about it, it is text generation and text summarization, right? So, so the use cases that you can build on top of that will be that, right? Where it gets more interesting is, yes, it is text generation or text summarization, but what do you generate? What is the text that you generate is what differentiates the applicability or the domain of the use cases there, right? So let me explain that a little bit. So if what you are generating is a Python code, if what you are generating is a test case, right? So then the use case that is widely applied across many of our customers and industries today is, how do I use generative AI to improve the productivity of my engineer? Because there the realm of applicability is generation of code, right? So how can I help someone who is coming new into the organization to quickly onboard and understand what we are doing, right? So there the idea of summarization comes into play, right? Where you have a knowledge base, you have hundreds of documents about your products, and all of that knowledge, you cannot just transfer to that. You cannot ask them to view 100 hours of video, but rather if you provide such a generative capability and build such a capability on top of this knowledge base, and you can just get your employees onboarded quickly, right? So now coming back to domain specific applications, right? So employee productivity so far is its code generation, it could be domain agnostic, but the other capability of the model is in how you can fine tune a model, right? So model fine tuning is often something that is talked about, and what that really means is, how can I take something generic and make it specific to my domain, right? Now the responses that you are going to get from the model, the text it generates, is going to be very specific towards your domain. And if you have such a model, the use case that you can build on top of is conversational agents again, right? So there you are leveraging your model to have a conversation with it. In the case of employee productivity, you are leveraging a model to generate something for you. Here you are leveraging a model to have a conversation with it. So that is another definite area of application that we are seeing a lot of traction today. And beyond this, it is just limited by our creativity, I would say, right? So wherein the same idea of conversation can be extended to the concept of digital double, where we are working with some of our customers to create a digital double of themselves, so that when they are not around, when they are the SME and they are not around to answer all of the questions that might come up, all of that, their knowledge is in if it is available in the form of a document or something that we can feed to the model, these models can act as the digital double. So that's another idea, right? So every day there are hundreds of models that is coming out, and there are the metrics to measure the quality of the models and the performance of the models. But how do you make a right decision is a very important question. So the general recommendation that we have is, think about where you are going to host the model, right? So first, from the infrastructure point of view, you are going to a reputed cloud provider, and so some levels of data security is already guaranteed for you, right? Is there bias? Will you get into a copyright issue if you productionize those models? Those are some of the factors that these providers validate those models against, and then they offer those as vetted models that we can build solutions on, right? So
yeah,
so the primary recommendation is, go with the models that are offered by these large cloud providers out there.
got it. I'm going to skip to a couple final questions. One is, I know we have some use cases, but is there one, you can quickly talk about that we've worked on already, or that's in the POC stage, that is actually going to make a big difference for a company?
Yeah, of course. Some of the examples that I quoted earlier are already that, right? So one is the digital double and onboarding. But if you sort of zoom out a little bit from these use cases, generally speaking, business process automation is where we are seeing a lot of value, right? Yes, you can focus on developer productivity because it is generative. Yes, you can answer some of the conversational questions and build a conversational bot based on the knowledge base that you provide to the model. Yes, that's a good use case. But with agentic AI, you can go beyond that. You can turn the intelligence into action.
potentially people will be thinking about cost, but if you do it right, I think am I right in saying there's a lot of opportunities where they could actually save money by implementing this?
So, and what we are learning, and through experience, and by discussing with through discussions with our customers, is um, do not think of this Gen AI as a solution for every problem,
Yeah.
right? Because there is, and it is not, right? Because it can only do so much. Like I said, the core capabilities of summarizing and generation, and that's not a solution for all the problems. And so it is very important to get that, because whatever you do with these generative models are going to cost you, right? And that cost is depends on how much of text that it generates, how much of text it consumes. So I would say leverage generative AI only when you cannot solve the problem with the traditional NLP solutions that you might have out there today, right? So the progression of moving towards generative AI solution is start with your traditional AI. If at all you need a AI or machine learning, start with the traditional algorithms. And if there is a need for conversational interface, think about how you can employ traditional NLP algorithms, right? Even if that level of sophistication is not good enough, then come to Gen AI, because you are going to incur cost for everything that you do with that. Now, there are ways of reducing the cost. Now, if you really have a good and concrete use case that must use generative AI, there are ways of thinking about cost optimization, or you can run your own models in your own infrastructure, and you can apply techniques like fine tuning and distilling to make the model size a lot smaller, so that it requires less compute capacity, so that you don't have to spend so much on GPUs.
So people might be thinking, yeah, I want to do all this, but are there some hidden risks related to security threats? How do you address that?
Oh yeah, that is very important, right? See, uh, it is essential to know, if you are using open source model, for example, right? You should really know what is the data that the model is trained on, right? Because it might have some inherent biases in how it is trained, or you might run into some copyright infringements, right? So we don't think about all of this when we're excited about the technology and the potential that it has to offer, and then we just jump into building solutions, right? But it is important to think about such inherent risks, and that is where the earlier recommendation of going with cloud providers comes into play. So there is varying degrees of security threats and risks that you have to be cognizant of when you are building a solution using Gen AI.
So, Ganesh, thank you for joining me on the first episode of Being Relevant. I would say to close this out, relevance is being relevant. And if you all are listening in and want to learn more, call Ganesh or contact me or anybody at the Relevance team. And we do a lot of discovery at no cost to help you think through whatever your issues are. So, thanks, Ganesh. Appreciate you being on today.
Thanks for the opportunity, Tino.